Have you ever wondered how GeminiJets functions? Have you ever wondered how they structure their releases, work with factories, and partner with airlines? Have you ever wondered what GeminiJets is all about? Join me as we attend Todd Models Seminar during Airliners International 2024, GeminiJets, from conception to flight. It's time to learn what GeminiJets is all about, and I really hope each and every one of you are excited for this. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Before we begin, I want to give a huge thank you to Todd Models, GeminiJets, and Airliners International for making this seminar possible. This seminar was so much fun and shows you how much enjoyment can be had at Airliners International. Be sure to check out Todd Models' full seminar on the World Airline Historical Society YouTube channel, as there's so much to be learned from his presentation. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started with today's video, everybody. Alrighty, everybody, welcome to Todd Models Seminar from Airliners International 2024, GeminiJets from conception to flight. I really hope all of you are excited for this, as today we're going to gain a really awesome understanding of what GeminiJets is all about and really learn about how these models are produced in the releases and just so many cool components of this. It's going to be absolutely awesome. And one more time, definitely go check out that World Airline Historical Society video on this full seminar. It's over an hour long and it is super terrific if you're looking to gain a better understanding about GeminiJets and just their full way of how they get these models produced in general. That is definitely the video for you, and it is really awesome, so definitely go check it out. But today we're going to be breaking this seminar analysis into 4 sections: an overview, the condition of the models, the releases themselves, and the factory as well. So we're going to dive into all these sections, especially getting into how they do the releases and also how the factory functions as well, as that was a huge highlight of the seminar. We spent several minutes and really just the whole time talking about those 2 particular topics, so we're going to dive into that quite a bit. So it's going to be absolutely awesome, and I'm really excited for this analysis. So let's not waste any further time, everybody, and go ahead and get started with the full overview. So first and foremost, this was my first seminar at Airliners International over my 3 years that I've attended so far, and I have to say the vibe was just super cool. So it's so awesome to be able to interact with everybody and just have a great time. It was also just an absolute honor to be invited by Todd himself to help assist with the seminar, so I was able to help him give out some coupons along with the other projects during the seminar. So that was a bunch of fun, and I really enjoyed that. So huge shout out to Todd for doing that and just overall having a great time. So as I was talking about with the coupons, we also distributed some of those. That was a really fun interactive activity during the seminar. So there was $5 off for 1 to 400 models and $10 off for 1 to 200 models. So definitely really cool that we were able to do that, and huge shout out for making that a reality. So the coupons were really cool. So another really cool vibe that I got from the seminar is that obviously it was a very serious and constructive discussion, but there was also some humor thrown in as well, which I thought was just a nice way to keep the vibe a full mix. And that was just really great to have all the various components put together there to really have an awesome analysis about GeminiJets and what they do. So I thought that was really cool, and overall really great to have that in the seminar. If you don't know, Todd is the director of customer service and marketing at GeminiJets. He mainly helps with those areas, but he also helps with some of the other areas like the airplane shop when needed. So Todd's a huge influence there at GeminiJets, and he does so much for the company, especially in the customer service and marketing side. So that is his position. That's what he does. And it's so cool to hear the analysis of GeminiJets from his side. And he knows quite a bit about it considering what his position is. So I thought that was really cool. And I know it's listed one more time on here, but definitely check out that full seminar on the WAS YouTube for the full analysis. It's really good. And if you're really fascinated by model aircraft, that is definitely the place for you. So I know the condition section is really short, but I'll try to elaborate as much as I can on it to add some additional information to it. So I know I only have 3 sections here, so let's go ahead and dive into those. So the seminar really started by talking about that because he had a Delta MD-11 that he bought that day at the show. And the first part of it was handling it with plastic, which I think is a really great idea so that you don't get any oils or any other debris on your models. So that was his first recommendation, was to use plastic to handle the models. So I thought that was really great and definitely a great way to start it out right there. He also talked about display cases and how that was a great way to display the models, and they also don't get dirty if they're enclosed in a case. So that's really cool, whether it's glass or another way. So definitely really cool to see him highlight that as well. And he also talked about the various cloths that you could use. I highly recommend checking out the seminar video to get the full analysis on that, since it's a pretty complex topic, but there's a wide array of cloths that are either good or bad to handle your models. So, but I do really like that way of handling with the plastics. So I'm going to have to start laying it out around when I get that with the models and start handling them like that when moving them, because I think that is a really great highlight to be had there. So overall, really great analysis on the condition side of these models. It is now time to dive into where we're really going to spend our time today, and that's that's going to be on the model aircraft releases and also how the factory impacts what GeminiJets does and how they function. So first and foremost, again, really, this is like the fourth time I said it, so I'm sorry, but it really is important to watch that WAS video to get the full details on how all this functions, because it really goes into what we're going to talk about here, and it really gains a better understanding. So I would recommend checking that one out. That's the final time I'm saying it. I just wanted to really make that clear, because what we're going to talk about here goes right with that. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into the key analysis here from what we could take away from GeminiJets. So first and foremost, we are going to start with how they structure their releases and how that is all done. So first and foremost, if you don't know Elliot Epstein, he is the founder of GeminiJets, and what he does is he went plane spotting for a very long time with his brother back when he was growing up, and he started by collecting dragon wings. So that was in the mid 90s to the late 90s, and he thought that he would be able to make a more realistic die-cast model aircraft. So that's where he started, that he made GeminiJets with 4 initial 747 releases back in 1998, I think it was 1998, excuse me. So that's where that started, and that's how the company started. So Elliot decides on all the releases and what the final say is for what gets made. So if they're making, I have a couple here on my desk, the Iceland Air 80th anniversary livery, Elliot decides on that. The Alaska 737 MAX 9, among others. So Elliot is the person that decides on that. Typically, the run quantity for how many models they make of each release is somewhere between 500 and 1,000. I know that's been a big number that's been floating around, how many releases get made of each aircraft. So that was the number that Todd gave us, was 500 to 1,000. So I thought that was a really key piece of information that we definitely wanted to evaluate. Another really important metric to consider is releases like the United 737 MAX 9 that came out earlier this year. These popular aircraft that take a long time to make is because GeminiJets has so many models that they're producing, and they actually legitimately don't know about each and every one of them, which is understandable because the GeminiJet staff is actually rather small compared to what you'd think. They don't have 25 or 30 people working in there. It's only like 6 individuals or whatever the number is. So it's kind of tough for all of them to keep their ducks in a row regarding what aircraft are popular and what they want to get out. You know, obviously they're going to see some of it, but you know, the United MAX 9 is just a generic 737 that flies around quite a bit. Some of those can go under the wayside. Other airplanes like the United A320, American 175 with the normal winglets, and so on. So it is a fundamental concept to think about, and that's why some of them take some time. So I would highly recommend messaging either Todd or GeminiJets on Instagram to keep them aware of these aircraft that you want, because they're definitely open to all suggestions and are always thinking about aircraft to do. So that would really help to keep them in the loop. So like, for example, United A320 or whatever it is, definitely send in the GeminiJets or Todd on Instagram. That's a really great way to keep them in the loop of what us collectors are interested in. It's also worth noting that when these releases are structured, GeminiJets, one of their primary goals is to keep the retailers happy. So obviously they have a variety of authorized retailers all across the world. You have plenty here in the United States, but you also have so many out there in Asia, Europe, and other regions of the world, Australia. So when these releases are being decided upon, I mean, it is kind of common knowledge, but it really is, you know, the broad concept to consider is that GeminiJets is considering all these regions and what exactly that they're going to do. So, and obviously it gets down to each and every country and what's coming out there. So all that's really important to consider, and why their releases are structured the way that they are. It was also considered during the seminar that the US heavy releases are done intentionally, because obviously the US is the bread and butter of GeminiJets. Therefore, that's the highest priority. So I know that is a pretty logical and fundamental concept, but I did just want to evaluate that one so that for my international viewers or for anybody else curious, GeminiJets is aware of all the models that are, you know, all the airlines that are flying around the world, and they are doing their best to work with them. Speaking of which, that is the next topic to talk about. The airlines can be very cooperative or very uncooperative, which is probably what we would have expected, but there was a couple of particular examples. So I'll go ahead and get the negative out of the way. Airlines like ANA and Singapore are very challenging to work with in the licensing department, and that's why GeminiJets doesn't do many of the aircraft. Another interesting one to think about is JetBlue. We had a little bit of the discussion about them. Only a few of their aircraft have been made by GeminiJets as of late, so there's a bunch of licensing and agreement to be done there. So it's definitely worth noting that. Another one that's not particularly an airline, but another airline that, or cargo company that they make, Primair, they've made corporate releases of, but they've never made a public release because that's the relationship that GeminiJets has with Amazon Prime. So we wouldn't expect any Amazon Prime aircraft to be made in the future. So definitely worth noting that. So some other airlines though are really cooperative. For example, the Hawaiian Airlines Boeing 787-9, which you can see on the right side over there for the factory, that aircraft particularly was made made nearly 2 years before the actual aircraft took flight. So Hawaiian Airlines gave them the approval to do all that, make the aircraft and all that, but not release the actual model aircraft until the aircraft took flight. So it's definitely really cool to think about how all that works and how all the different airlines function in that. Another really interesting thought that we had there as well includes the different box arts that they have. So for example, you can think of airlines like Hawaiian, Southwest, Air France, and others that have the particular box design that they would like on the boxes. And if the airline doesn't care, for example, American, Delta, United, it's just the standard GeminiJets box. So that's the reason that the boxes are different, is because the airline particularly wants them different for the corporate release or whatever the other reason is. Emirates is another really good example of an airline partnership that's really strong with GeminiJets. Obviously, they have their particular box art and do a select quantity of aircraft. I would presume, I'm not exactly sure, but I would assume that GeminiJets and Emirates have a contract to do X amount of aircraft per year or whatever the number is, and that's why we see as many Emirates aircraft as we do, or they just say, here's our new livery, do this one or whatever it is. So it's really important. And that kind of goes hand in hand to our next topic. The final one for the release category is when the aircraft just gets announced or when it's very popular. So for example, the Southwest Amuma 1 or whatever it is, GeminiJets has to really make a push to get that new aircraft out. So for example, again, Amuma 1, that aircraft was super popular. So GeminiJets really makes a push to get that out as soon as possible, which you can see over there in the factory side. It typically takes about 6 months to produce these aircraft. So it can be an absolute race at times to get these done so that they're out on the market and ready to go. So that was really interesting as well, and all that's really great. A couple of additional notes that aren't listed here. One for sure that I really want to hit on, it definitely includes the releases themselves. It was brought up that it seemed like GeminiJets was purposely trying to compete with other competition manufacturers, for example, like Amuma 1, because they all come out around the same time or whatever the case is. With GeminiJets, and actually, they're just making what they see fit, and they're not particularly trying to compete against anybody. But when you see multiple manufacturers making the same aircraft at the same time, it's just because it's popular and what they see fit for doing. So obviously, it's ironic that everybody makes a Japan A350 with the 100 sticker, 1000 sticker rather, within 2 months of each other, but it's actually just because of how popular it is. It's not really oversight on purpose. And that kind of leads into another fundamental concept as well that I'm sure goes into this as well. The overlap concept for these factories. I touched on this in a video previously, but the overlap concept that's important here is when the factories are going to make these aircraft, when they're selecting what liveries and airlines to do. One part for the factories in China think of it like, okay, well, if we're going to do a TWA MD-80, why don't we see if JC Wings wants to do it as well, and then JC Wings will do it, which Todd was a little upset that JC Wings went right back behind GeminiJets and did that aircraft after they released it. GeminiJets, that is, but it's a fundamental concept because obviously when the factory is doing similar liveries and all that, they want to get as much overlap as possible for less costs on producing these aircraft and getting them out. So that's a really fundamental concept. So yeah, if any more release topics come to my head, I'll be sure to bounce back over to it. But now I really want to dive into some details about the factories and what GeminiJets does there and how that functions in their environment. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So for the factories, they're all in China, obviously, and GeminiJets uses multiple factories to produce their models, which is a really important concept. Some of these fuselages can use aluminum or zinc alloy as their primary, base there to function for the fuselage. So that was another important concept that was established. And, obviously we talked about zinc rod and a couple of other concepts as well. And those aluminum and zinc alloy were the main two that were mentioned there for what the aircraft used, which appears that that's been going pretty well for GeminiJets so far, minus a couple exceptions over time. So great to see that the materials that they're using is going really well. We did get into the concept of glue, parts, broken models, and all of the different concepts that go with it there, especially over the last 5 years. The main reason that was established there for why this happens is because we went into a really deep discussion regarding the life of the employees. So if we take a moment to place ourselves where those employees are in China, unfortunately with the situation there, they're working from sunrise to sunset, they're not getting paid very well, and most of them haven't even seen a real life aircraft in their life. So what they're doing is following the instructions on paper of what they're supposed to do to put these parts together. It's all the more they can see it. They're not thinking of putting an airplane together. They're just thinking of putting parts inside a slot. So when that happens, obviously it becomes redundant and they're not getting paid very much. So there's not much motivation. So they'll just kind of slap it in. And there's been aircraft, obviously, with issues in the past coming deattached and obviously all the various parts. So due to the various reasons there, that definitely contributes to why we've seen that. And there's only so much we can do about that from our perspective. And then we get into, once again, the 6 months to produce these aircraft. When an aircraft is sent out to them, it usually takes about 6 months to get fully through the cycle. And then obviously it's got to be shipped back to the headquarters in Las Vegas. So that's a very important concept to establish there. It usually takes about 1 year for new molds to be established. So that was definitely an interesting one. I didn't know how long that process usually takes, but they did talk about the 1-200 767-400 mold taking more like 1.5 to 2 years to get going. So it does vary, of course, but Todd said the average was about a year for a new mold to be developed. We did talk about the overlap concept in detail, but it's definitely a fascinating one to think about how these companies, what they choose to make and then what it can overlap and induce for another company. So I definitely thought that was interesting. We also talked about the glue and parts as well. The factories themselves do catch the various issues that happen. So for example, if there's a mold issue, if an engine's not attached right, if the landing gear aren't right, the factories can usually catch these issues before it goes into mass production, which is really great so that releases don't get delayed or a model doesn't get severely messed up. There are sometimes a couple exceptions like the Air Canada ERJ-175 with enhanced winglets that was released in 1/200 scale a while back. That was a very interesting one, and they do slip through the cracks sometimes, but typically it's more standard there that the factory is able to catch it relative to that before. So that's definitely worth noting too. I did talk about the Hawaiian Boeing 787. It was made a year and two in advance, but it was or a year and a half rather in advance, but obviously wasn't released until the aircraft took flight in April of 2024. So really interesting to think about those concepts as well. And lastly, this wasn't really a factory topic, but I thought it was important to mention there in some sort of section. So I know it's not perfect, but it's kind of in the production of GeminiJets section. And that is that they have considered working with 3D printers on various projects like a airport, air traffic control tower, and other work like that. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, but it is really cool to see them thinking about that. So yeah, this was an awesome seminar and there was so much to take away from it. And again, feel free to check out the World Airline Historical Society full seminar video. It's over an hour. It's a really great opportunity to listen to it if you're exercising or just need audio to listen to. And you learned so much from it. I learned so much. I really enjoyed watching it back. And obviously, I was there to listen to it. So after thinking about all these concepts twice, I can really say that the operation is very fascinating. And I'm really hopeful that this seminar does return for 2025 at the Lance Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport for Airlines International. So that's going to be absolutely awesome. And I'm really eager to see if it will return, and if it does, to learn even more. So hopefully we can develop a really great wide array of questions, which I also want to mention. Todd just did a phenomenal job hearing out everybody's questions, and obviously even companies like NG Models and JC Wings got brought up several times. So for him to the constructive way of handling those questions and, saying that I understand and so on and so forth was really great, that he could understand the collector's perspective so well. And it's really important to establish Todd's background because he actually went plane spotting when he was younger and then unintentionally bought his first model aircraft. He was trying to get one for a friend. It was a TWA DC-9 by Aero Classics, but he was so fascinated by the model that he actually just kept it for himself and then just started collecting. So it's so cool how he completely didn't even intend to get into model aircraft collecting, but he ended up being a premier model aircraft collector, and obviously what he does now with GeminiJets. So yeah, it is super cool to think about. And overall, I just thought that he did a really great job with this seminar, and I really enjoyed it. So huge shout out to you, Todd. You're absolutely awesome, man. And definitely check out his Instagram profile and the GeminiJets Instagram as well. They have Facebook for GeminiJets too. So definitely check out all of that. And again, I've already said enough, but the WASP video on his seminar is really great. So anyway, yeah, so much to take away from this seminar. These videos are really fun to make and really great to dive into the analysis of GeminiJets. I hope to do some additional GeminiJets videos later in the year regarding how much improvement they've made since, for example, 2019 and what the outlook looks like for GeminiJets. So I definitely am excited to talk about Gemini in a very positive light because they have seriously made significant progress. And in the seminar video, you'll find that they talked about there was one particular question where it was mentioned that GeminiJets' details improved significantly over the last year, which is definitely a really great analysis. And molds like the 1-400E2, the 767-400, and others have really took GeminiJets to the next level, and I'm so excited for the future. And I think it's fair to say that GeminiJets is doing what they do best, and it's going to be super exciting to talk about them for many years to come. So this was super fun to make, and I really hope all of you enjoyed this. It's going to be awesome to see what the future of discussions like this look like. And I also have a video regarding Todd Models. I did an interview on him, so I'm super excited to release that. And we also have a 15-minute discussion video with him too, where we'll dive into some more of these details and concepts as well. It was really fun to gain a better understanding and analysis of that, so it will be an absolute blast to dive into all those details. And again, I really hope all of you are looking very forward to that, as it was so much fun, and those videos will be awesome along with the rest of the Airlines International videos, so definitely stay on the lookout for those. It was so much fun. This year was just absolutely great, and looking super forward to Atlanta in 2025 and more, where that came from with GeminiJets and all of what we do best. So I really hope all of you enjoyed this. More videos on the seminars will be coming out through the coming months, so definitely stay on the lookout for it, and weekly Airlines International videos as well. So again, I really hope all of you enjoyed this. What a blast, and overall just a great time. So with all that being said, everybody, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank each and one of you for watching. My name is Redriveraviation. Take it easy, everybody. Stay safe. Just process. Do you love and love you do. My name is Redriveraviation. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon as Redriveraviation is signing off.